Okay, ladies and gentlemen, I want to take a second to introduce our next guest, Jeremy McGraw. Now, he originally moved out of his hometown of Windsor to the GTA, but came back and looked at it from a brand new perspective. He became a realtor, and in his story, he breaks down what he did in one of his unsuccessful years, and then later made some changes to become very successful thereafter. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope you enjoy this episode. Jeremy McGraw. Hey there, how's it going?
Good, how are yourself?
Oh, brother, I'm fantastic. Thank you so much for asking. So, what was your name?
My name is Jeremy McGraw. I'm a realtor with SJ Real Estate and Remax Capital Diamond. Welcome to my office.
Jeez, well, thanks so much for welcoming us, Jeremy. We really appreciate it. So I'm hoping I could borrow a couple minutes of your time. I just got a quick question.
Absolutely, what is it?
So, Jeremy, have you ever made $100,000 in a year before?
I have.
Okay, buddy, you got to break us down. We want to know about the first time, where you were in your life, and how'd you go about getting that?
Okay, so a couple years ago, we'll say I was 26. We're going back to 2016 there. I just recently moved back to Windsor from the Toronto area, and I became a realtor. My first year, didn't make too much money. My second year, I really hustled, busted my butt off, and I actually was able to make well over $100,000 my first official year of real estate.
So what do you think the difference between your first and your second year was?
Well, I didn't have a circle of influence, obviously confidence levels at the time. You're coming to an area that I knew, obviously, growing up, but times have changed since I moved back. And basically what I made a little bit of mistakes, so obviously learned a little bit, but I was able to network and meet a bunch of people and get into more of the investment field, which I kind of am now with selling multifamily and a lot of apartment buildings, that I'm able to, I was able to grow my circle of influence and actually get a lot more referrals on top of my normal day-to-day phone calls and cold calls I was doing. So I was able to basically almost triple my business in my first year.
What does sphere of influence mean?
Sphere of influence is basically your top of mind on your, basically top of mind on those people. So for example, when you think, what's the first thing you think of when you think of basically a brand, right? It's that person. So for example, if someone's thinking of real estate, hopefully they think of me first, right? Or if they're talking real estate with a friend, the first thing that kind of comes out of their mouth is, well, I actually have a friend in the business. It's not, I know someone. It's either I know someone or I have a friend in the business. So that's been able to really help grow my business is by saying, hey, I have friends saying I have a friend.
Interesting. So did you actually know this in your first year? Did you learn something that all of a sudden you started changing? Like what changed between year one and year two?
The hustle, the drive, the commitment, the determination, basically just going out and meeting new people every day. That was the biggest thing because once again, the first year was more getting a lay of the land, getting an understanding of what I'm doing, both as a person and as a career, as well as basically growing my own brand, my own business. And once I got the hang of it, which takes you a couple months, could take some people a lot longer, but for me, it took me a couple months to really get going, and then basically just building the confidence to keep going out there, keep saying, hey, this is who I am, handing out cards. And for some people, obviously, you're going to hear a lot of no's, and you're going to say, oh, yeah, thanks, and kind of, they're going to toss it later. But the fact of it is, if you sit out there talk to 100 people a day, all you need is that one person. And if you do that every single day, that's 365 people you meet in a year that will remember you. And that's all you need. You don't even need 365, to be honest with you. You only need like 10, 15 people. And that 10, 15 people will refer you out. And it just keeps expanding from there. It's like a spider web.
Interesting. So when you say just adding people to your network, one person a day, you're just talking to one person a day, like what does that mean? Do you know these people already? Are these new people? Like where are you finding all these people?
Well, it becomes like it's basically your sphere of influence. So your main sphere is all your friends and anyone that you personally know. It could be family members, obviously friends, people that you work with, even acquaintances, right? It's that people that you already know and as a warm person. And then basically either yourself or them, they'll go out and when they have their conversations, all you're doing is building, basically what they're doing is they're going to say, hey, they have a conversation about real estate. Once again, it's the conversation is, hey, I have a friend that's in the business. If they think they're selling, it could be two people having a conversation and one goes, hey, I'm thinking about selling my house. And then the other one goes, oh, do you know anyone that does it? Because I actually have a friend in the business. And that's what basically a sphere of influence is. Someone that you know or someone that's going to basically go out and refer you. It's a fan, right? Not just a fan, but just someone that actually trusts you and will refer you out. That's huge. Because now instead of it just being yourself and having just one, you have to have all your conversations yourself. Now you're going to have those conversations. Plus, your friends, family, and everyone else in your sphere are going to have the same conversations. It might not be every single day, but for example, I've had my dad give me 3 or 4 leads last year, right? And I've had just, through word of mouth, I actually had I have a listing appointment for tomorrow actually through another friend that I did a business with last year. So it's just one of those things that you have your circle of influence working for you.
Interesting. Thanks so much for breaking that down, Jeremy. We really appreciate it. Okay, so I got another question for you. Have you ever made $100,000 in a month before?
I have made $100,000 in a month.
Okay, so you got to break that down for us. We got to learn a little bit more about how you did that, and maybe the first time that you did it. Is there a second time, a third time? Break it down for us.
Very good question. Basically, where was it? We've actually sold. So I sold about 6 or 7 houses in 1 month, which was a very, very good month, and a lot of those closed in the same period of time. I've also, in that period of time, was able to grow both my crypto account and my stock account up to an amount where between my real estate, my crypto, and my stock market portfolio, all 3 of those were able to make me over $100,000 in a single month. And that's not even talking about real estate speculation that I made owning multiple real estates, but we'll talk about after.
Interesting. Okay. So break this down. So you got a stock portfolio, a crypto portfolio, you're selling real estate. Okay, which one did you do first and which one do you like the most?
I've been in the stock market for a long time. That's something I don't know too much about. I've started learning a little bit more when the stock market started crashing. I do have a professionally managed account, and then I do have my own little play account, which I did really well my first year. I think I made about 85% return on my investment, and that was only because the stock market went crazy from 2020 to 2021, right? And I owe it basically just to the stock market going nuts. Thank you, Tesla, and thank you, Shopify, and a couple other accounts. But basically, yeah. So, obviously, I was involved in the AMC and the BlackBerry, as well as what was that one? The game company, GameStop. Yeah, I think lost a little bit of money on GameStop. I did make a little bit on AMC and BlackBerry there. But basically, yeah, so a stock market, you want to be diverse. I basically invest heavily in real estate, crypto. That's obviously taking a hit, but obviously buying the dip. We got real estate there, and then obviously my career. So I have a bunch of different funnels. Each funnel does a duty, right? So that if something does go down, at least other things can work for your money, right?
Interesting. Okay. So have you done $100,000 in 1 month from strictly work, or has it always been just like a mix of things?
It's always got it. Yes, I've definitely made $100,000 in off of a house flip.
Okay. So what about in a day?
I definitely have.
Okay. Definitely break that down.
So, going back to have you made over $100,000 in a month. So to give you an idea, and this will go into a day as well. We'll kind of maneuver both because I don't want to talk about that both. I think it does well for a day as well. Going back to March, I actually listed 2 flips I did. Another thing I do is flip houses. I own quite a few houses in my portfolio, and I was able to sell off 2 of them as a flip. Both listed within about a week or 2 of each other, and both closed within a couple days of each other afterwards. So each flip, for example, I bought one for $230,000, which we put about $100,000 into it and sold for $530,000. The second one I bought for $250,000, sunk about $30,000 into it, and sold that for $500,000. So I made about just over on my takeaway. I think I made about $150,000 in 1 month, with one of them making me over $100,000 in a day.
Dude, that's crazy.
And that was just flipping 2 houses in 1 year. And actually not even flipping 2, it was flipping 2 houses in 2 months.
How did you learn this stuff, man?
You just basically, being in the real estate game, you meet a lot of people that flip houses, that renovate properties, right? And every day you just learn something new about each and every person. and you kind of see whatever I'm able to have a backdoor pass to see what everyone else is doing. For example, like what you're doing, what anyone else is doing in the market, right? I'm able to see what they're doing and learn from both their pros and obviously not their pros, but their wins and losses, we'll say, their mistakes and what they've done really well with. So I take what works and I learn what doesn't work, and then I put that into my plan of action.
Interesting. Now you mentioned something interesting. It was about seeing people's wins and losses.
That's huge.
Up close, right?
You need to see that.
So what do you think your biggest win has been?
My biggest win was being able to get into the market. Basically, I was able to get into this crazy market, both either as a real estate agent. I got in at a great time. I was able to learn the market before it got super crazy, and I was able to benefit from this market. Obviously, with all the speculation that's gone on, we've seen a lot of buyers coming in and buying both investment properties, personal houses, along those lines there. And I was able to buy a multitude of properties that basically just skyrocketed in value. I bought at the right time. There was no, like, if you ask me, was this all calculated? Any real estate investor that says, oh, it's all calculated based off of spec. The speculation is speculation. We no one, I don't think, besides a few people. I mean, there was writing on the walls, the market was going to do what it's going to do in February. But realistically, if anyone would have told you the mortgage rates are going to be about what they are today, BS on that for sure. So we were able to get a lot of luck, and I was able to basically ride the wave. So once again, I saw a lot of people making a lot of money in the real estate game. I jumped in right away. Whether or not you want to say it's all luck, it was a gamble for sure, and the gamble paid off.
Beautiful. So what would you say your biggest mistake is? Michelle, feel free. Don't feel pressured by me. I'm so sorry about earlier. Yeah, what would you say your biggest mistake is, Jeremy?
My biggest mistake is not buying earlier in the real estate market. The reason why I said that is I actually had a really good job in Toronto about 2011-12. I would have been able to buy houses in the Windsor market for $15,000 to $50,000. Those houses you see now, and don't get me wrong, 2011 is not the same market we were in the last couple of years. It was completely different. The tenant market was different as well. But buying those houses at that price point and even investing, $30,000 to $50,000 or more into those properties are well worth $300,000 to $500,000. So think about that. In 10 years, you could have probably more than 10x most of those properties. That's crazy. And you'd have 10 years of mortgage pay down.
Jeez, and that's uncompared to anything, man. That's nuts. Okay, so curious, Jeremy, if you could go back and talk to the old Jeremy, that Toronto Jeremy, the one before he got into real estate, before he became an agent. Why did you even become an agent in the first place?
I moved a lot, actually. My parents both, they were very, very Europeanized, and they were never into heavy debt. So when we never had a lot of money growing up, so basically every time that they could afford to buy into a better neighborhood, they did. And obviously the recession happened, and my dad would have lost his job at General Motors in Windsor. He was able to move up to the General Motors in Oshawa, and that allowed us to basically move on and have him basically have a job, right? So I moved probably 9 times before I finished high school. And that was 5 different schools, all because of just moving up in life for my parents, right? And obviously some changes in life. And then since then, that's all I basically knew was moving, going to a new school, meeting new people. So for me, it was something that came naturally. I knew people in the industry, and the reason why I moved back was I had an opportunity down here with a realtor to learn and mentor underneath, and that was able to heavily, basically, I was able to grow tenfold in quite some time.
Wow, that's interesting. So if you could go back and talk to the old Jeremy, the one before he got into real estate, I'm wondering what type of advice you'd have for him.
I think if I were to go back, I would not take my family's advice as seriously. I think family is great, but I found that having talked to a lot of people that were in the same position as me now, their family's always trying to give you the best response, which is, don't do that, because what if you might lose? What if you might fall down? What if you might not make it, right? My mom was always very much into that, where I was saying, oh, maybe I should buy a house before I move back here. And she's like, well, what happens if your real estate career doesn't take off? What happen? A lot of it's what happens for sure, right? But I had confidence going in knowing that I would do really well. But when you hear that so much, obviously I got into the game later, where I could have, if I just knew and understood where I was, and basically grew my own self instead of just trying to listen to what everyone else is doing and what everyone else is saying, I would have been in a lot better of a position, I think.
Interesting. Well, and so what would your direct advice be? What would you tell that old Jeremy?
Kick ass. Just do what you want to do. If you want to do it, just go for it. That's the biggest thing I would say, is go for it.
Beautiful. Hey, Jeremy, before we go, where can we find you, man? I'm sure you dropped so many gems today that some people are going to want to learn a little bit more about what you got going on.
Absolutely. As you can see, we're at my office here, but I am a RE/MAX agent, and I'm partnered up with Justina Barlow, which is a great lady there. We own SJ Real Estate. You can find me on Instagram at Jeremy from Windsor. We also are on Facebook, SJ Real Estate. Definitely reach out to me. Any questions you have, I'm always trying to help first-time people get into either real estate, get their investment properties there, or just basically learn the basics.
Cool. Well, Jeremy, thank you so much, man.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, man.
Yeah, we appreciate you, brother. Thanks so much.
Until next time.
All right, and there you have it, Jeremy McGraw, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you guys enjoyed his story as much as I did, and that wraps up another episode of 100 Ways to Make 100K. Thanks so much for tuning in. I'm your host, Javon.ca, and I will see you on the next episode.